What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. I am your host, Josh Levine, and I am joined here by my longtime friend and my co-host, Travis Hatch. And today we are joined by my good friend, my Team of Haley teammate, my boardroom buddy, Goss, general all-around badass human, and we get into everything from her experience being a registered dietitian in the fitness coaching space. We talk about misinformation and myths that we can bust, like protein consumption, carbs, the term metabolic damage. I'm using air quotes for those not watching the YouTube. We talk about how eating more food won't make you fat. What? It makes no sense. Then we talk about gut health and what's normal and what not normal. We talk about poop and shit and farting. But we do it in a very appropriate and medically conducive way. So don't worry. But it's something that you all need to hear. So don't tune in. It's going to be really good. There's a lot of good information here. There's a lot of good takeaways, and y'all are going to really enjoy it. But before we get into it, we do ask that if you love this episode, please give us 5 stars on Apple or a follow on Spotify. Share us on your socials. Tag us in your stories. You can find me at Josh Levine Fitness. You can find Travis at Travis Hawks Media. That's it. Get ready to be informed because episode 20 is about to start now. I want to drill holes in this table so we can have them like Joe Rogan has.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm cracking up at your freaking Facebook post.
My first reel ever.
Was that your first one ever?
That was the first reel I've ever made. I was literally, I used to, back when Snapchat first came out, I would just rant on Snapchat and it would apparently people thought it was really funny. So I just went to do that on Instagram stories and I was like,
dude, that's so funny.
I want to make this a reel. And I just yell at people. Travis, this is your first time meeting Kara, but I don't know. I just assume my people know who you are. If they don't, then they should. So aside from being my Team Haley teammate and my boardroom teammate and a generally badass human being,
I appreciate that.
Is Kara Goss. What do you do? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really all the introduction that I need, but no.
All right, that's it. That's all you need to know.
That's it. So I am a registered dietitian and personal trainer. I have a Master of Science in nutrition as well. And, just like Josh, I am an online nutrition and fitness coach. And, really what got me into the coaching space was kind of like my own background in going through a lot of fad dieting, being told I was fat from a young age and always being the chubby friend. I was always I was always me and Kylie and John Childress joke that we were the former fat kids club because we were, you know what I mean? And it's just that really spiraled into me kind of leading more into getting into food and fitness. And I went through a lot of binging and restricting in my past, before I hired Justin as a coach. And really going through kind of all of those struggles with myself really led me into becoming a coach and wanting to help, especially women. I really market and work mainly with women to helping them to overcome their fear of the gym and lifting heavy and eating more and just overcoming that, all or nothing mindset when it comes to fitness. So that's really who I am, what I do, what I'm passionate about.
I love it. And I love that you are an RD who also understands the importance of things like protein consumption and how that affects your physique goals. And it's not just, you're not just health focused. You know how to build some muscle and shit.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel that's something that's difficult to find. I can't even tell you. It's I feel it's really difficult because honestly, and this is not talking shit on anyone or any dietitians because we all kind of have our own stance on things, but I think it's really hard to find a lot of dietitians who are not very modest in their approach to things, like how the way that we're taught in school and the things that we're taught. Honestly, I feel like half the stuff needs to be updated or just like put into more of a real world application type situation. But even like in terms of the protein intake and stuff, like there's still RDs out there who are like, you only need 0.8 grams per kilogram. Like that's it. And I'm like, bro,
dude,
no.
Honestly, that's what most people probably eat.
It is. It honestly is.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's like, that's that kind of stuff that we're taught in school. Again, it's like we're taught a lot of like the minimum requirements for things. Like that is the recommended diet or the recommended dietary allowance for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram. And that is literally what's needed to just prevent mass loss. Like that is the minimum amount that you need in your day. And it's just like people don't understand that in terms of like building muscle and different things like that you need so much more than that to actually put on mass and focus on, actually building that lean body mass that you want. And I think that there's obviously a lot of like misconceptions about protein and fear of like it being harmful and all those things. And I just think that, again, like that carries over into like especially like a lot of the old school dietitian community, I would say for sure.
Yeah. So like, but why is it so hard to find dietitians that understand how all this works? And where are the dietitians who like preach this older type philosophy of this modest philosophy that you're talking about? Where are they working?
In the clinical setting, for sure.
Okay. So they're all 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I literally remember. So, oh my God, I literally remember like being in my clinical rotation because like in my dietetic internship, you have to have a certain amount of supervised practice hours and you go through different, rotations. You go through like food service, sports nutrition, community, clinical, but clinical was a really big part of my training. And don't get me wrong, like the dietitians I worked with were smart as fuck. Like I worked with a big team of dietitians because I worked in a pretty big hospital and I worked with 7 different dietitians who all had their own specialty, which was really cool. But I remember like even the doctors, like there were some older dietitians there who like them and the doctors, like I remember getting this patient's labs back the one time and they were like, oh, like, their like liver enzymes were high and they were like, oh, it's like, it's their protein. Like they're probably eating too much protein, blah, blah, blah. And like all this stuff. And I was just like, they would like always link like protein to everything, like kidney, liver, everything. Like protein was the devil. And I was like, listen, understand, like you have to understand. And I'm like over here trying not to argue, but it took everything in me not to be like, like, I don't want to step on the doctor's toes, but this is not correct. But I think a lot of people get nervous about protein intake and like kidney function and different things like that, because, if somebody is in like renal failure or they actually have chronic kidney disease or whatever, like their kidney is not going to be able to, like eliminate that waste and like metabolize protein as it normally would. But if you're somebody with normal kidney function, there's literally piles of research out there to show that kidney intake, protein intake, and a high protein intake at that is not something to be nervous about or is not something to really worry about with that. And I think that, people just get so caught up in like, oh, a high protein diet long-term is really bad for you. There is no like evidence out there, like definite evidence saying, yes, this is bad long-term.
Mm-hmm. Then do the dietitians in the sports dietetics field feel the same way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I will say that I think it's hard because as like somebody who, so like I didn't get to work with many dietitians because I really came right out. Like I worked as a dietitian in in like more of a community setting for a little under a year, but then I started my own business. So it's like, I've really always been heavily surrounded by RDs who think very similarly to me. But I will say that like I was the sports nutrition graduate assistant for my college, and I did work with the sports RD there, and she was very I will say that she was very like open-minded to things, and she was very always like up to date on the guidelines and everything like that. But I will say in terms of like, it definitely differed in terms of like endurance or, bodybuilding, obviously, or whatever it may be. But most of the time we were looking at like endurance athletes or like football players or whatever it may be, not necessarily sports focused in bodybuilding. But I always felt like there was this stigma around like bodybuilding and trying to build muscle and eating more protein. You know what I mean? No matter what, I just always felt like there was a stigma around the dietitian community.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I feel like a lot of people, that's something that we have to overcome is a lot of the myths, or I guess they're not myths. We can't really call them myths. As far as
just misconceptions,
especially around the protein consumption piece, where if you have a physique goal or if you have any sort of aesthetically driven goal, RDs might not be the people to listen to unless, like you, they are also deeply ingrained and deeply rooted in the physique enhancement community. Like,
and I think
you have to know how both work.
It's definitely difficult because I want to say that like, first, I want to say like dietitians definitely don't get the amount of respect and like credibility that they deserve for the amount of education and schooling that they've gone through to do what they do. Like we definitely don't, and it sucks. But at the same time, I swear I have this conversation on every podcast I'm on. It's literally like two ends of the spectrum. Like you have amazing nutrition coaches out there like yourself, who's not a dietitian, who knows a shit ton about nutrition and getting somebody to their physique goal. You know what I mean? Like you are smart as fuck when it comes to this stuff. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have some RDs out there who have no idea how to get somebody to a physical transformation, but you also have nutrition coaches out there who don't know what the heck they're talking about. And also amazing RDs out there who are awesome and can get you to a physical transformation. And I think it's about finding the right RD who specializes in these types of things, because I will say that a lot of the dietetics community specializes more so in like behavior change, and especially in like medical nutrition therapy, different things like that, which is amazing that I'm like legally able to do those types of things along with physique goals and all of those different things. But I'll definitely say that I would say like I feel like a minority in the dietitian community, because honestly, I think it was around like last year when the HAES movement kind of became really big. So like the health at every size and body positivity and everything like that. And don't get me wrong, like I am all for body positivity. I'm all for, all inclusiveness, but there was like a really big pushback from these, quote unquote anti-diet dietitians and like HAES dietitians against other RDs who were promoting, weight loss for their clients. And they were basically like, I literally remember seeing a post from a dietitian that was like, if you're helping your clients to lose weight, you're promoting disordered eating patterns. And I was like, what? Like that is just the most radical thing I've ever heard in my life. And I think it's just, I honestly feel like I'm a minority in that population, because even in the overall population of RDs, because I think it's becoming more and more common, but there's still a lot of RDs out there who like kind of like really disagree and look down on other RDs who use numbers and macros in their approach.
That's really annoying. And I get that. Yes, there can be some disordered tendencies when tracking macros. And I definitely fell into that when I first started learning about nutrition and I developed disordered habits. But especially if you're under supervision and this is your job.
Exactly.
What's the issue? You're one of few people who are actually legally allowed to like help people with disordered eating. So
So why not me?
I don't see the issue.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy is like, and then I remember like last year, whenever I forget what it was, something happened in like the state of Florida where like CrossFit nutrition coaches were like now allowed to give like macros or something, like legally allowed to do that or something along those lines. I forget. And like RDs were like super pissed. And one of my friends who is a fellow dietitian, she was like, not to burst any bubbles, but like there's a lot of dietitians out there who are super against getting people toward their physique goals. So what do you expect? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm glad that I'm one of those dietitians who's able to do that, but in a health focused way.
Yeah. I lived with a dietitian at one point.
Really?
One of my best friends who I moved out here with, his girlfriend was a dietitian. She was actually in the sports dietetics department at CU.
Okay.
And so she witnessed my early bodybuilding type nutrition habits and like completely disagree. Like you could see the disdain on her face.
Yeah.
And like would think it's stupid that I ate as much protein as I do. And I'm like, well, why do I look the way I do and you look the way you do? Not to be a dick, but like
it's very true. And it's just like, again, you have to put everything into context. Like that's totally fine if you're not trying to be a bodybuilder. Like I can't really like call myself a bodybuilder. I don't compete, but like I'm very much so into this lifestyle. Like I'm trying to.
You're about it.
I'm about it.
You're
like I'm going through my own physical transformation. And it's like, again, you have to put context around every single person's situation. And exactly, like most people, like why do certain people look the way they do versus why do bodybuilders look the way they do? It's because they're tailoring their nutrition to match all of their freaking training sessions.
Because we're trying to look that way.
Exactly. But yeah, I totally feel that. And it's just, again, like I said, like it's both end of the spectrums. There are, dietitians out there who honestly don't know that much in that realm, just like there are nutrition coaches out there who should not be giving nutrition advice, like it's just like there are like good doctors out there and not so great doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are there some dietitians that are against helping people reach their physique goals? Like where does that come from?
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it really comes from like the health at every size movement. So basically saying that I don't want to say that they're like against it, but they're against intentional weight loss. So basically with health at every size, it basically means like, your health is not defined by your weight, which I do agree with. But at the same time, like you can't really deny the fact that if somebody is obese or morbidly obese, they're likely going to have a lot more health issues like diabetes, blood sugar dysregulation, all of those things than somebody who is of a leaner state, right? Like, you know what I mean? So I think that, so it comes with like the health at every size. So there's a lot of dietitians out there who, are against intentional weight loss in the way that like, obviously we would put somebody into a fat loss phase. They would basically say, we're going to teach you health focused behaviors. So we're going to teach you how to, eat in a healthy manner. We're going to teach you really healthy lifestyle behaviors and, movement that feels good to you versus like intentional movement of trying to change your body. And then if weight loss comes along with that, okay, so be it. But we're not trying to intentionally do that. You know what I mean?
It's a byproduct of your behavioral change.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a lot of honestly like, and that is a cool thing. Like that is one really big thing that I did learn through school as well is like, I'm very like, as much as I am like, okay, like numbers focused, I'm also very much so behavior focused as well. And I think we can all say that if you're a health focused coach, you're a behavior focused coach too. So it's nice to be able to like tie those things into each other. But again, I think that's why like people think like there's a lot of dietitians out there who think that if you're trying to change your body, you don't love yourself or whatever it may be, which I do not agree with whatsoever. I think you can love yourself at the same time as wanting to change things.
It's like you see this like all over the place, but it's like telling somebody what to think or do is bad in this context. But but telling someone what to think or do is good in their context. So fat shaming is bad, but fit shaming is good, is basically what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Basically.
When in reality, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that the answer is just like somewhere in the middle. Like it's just different products. Somebody might not want to be told if you really just want to feel better and maybe lose a couple pounds along with it, then it would be pretty fucked up if someone was like, no, we're going to shred you down to the bone. Like that would be fucked up. But at the same time, if somebody wants to get jacked, it's kind of fucked up to tell them that you're a piece of shit for wanting to do that. Like what?
Exactly.
We are all pieces of shit.
It doesn't it's just insanity.
Look at that. Look at those people. Look at those jacked, good looking people. So
what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah. So they're being so rude right now, just existing.
Yeah. To me, it just seems like, hey, if you want to work with this type of person, good. If you want to work with this type of person, good.
Yeah, great.
But absolutely. And I think that again, it's just like, and this is where it comes in a context of like every dietitian has their own view on things and has their own niche that they work with and like population that they work with. So I think it's really dependent on like who the dietitian is trying to help. Like I know a lot of like HAES and like quote unquote anti-diet dietitians are trying to help those people who are recovering from eating disorders and who are trying to find that love for themselves. So I do understand that. But saying that other RDs are wrong for wanting to help people lose weight, that's extreme. And honestly, I'm going to say there's not a ton of dietitians out there who are as extreme as that, but I've definitely seen some out there. But most of the time, most lie in the middle, which is where we want to be, right? Like we want to be in the messy middle somewhere.
I agree with that. That makes sense. Something that I wanted to talk to you about, and we got talking on this earlier on in the podcast. We were talking about protein consumption, and I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. Like I said, I don't want to call them all myths, but there's a lot of misinformation that I think has been widely spread, one, throughout the internet, two, just from poor resources. And I think you would be a really great person to help bust these myths and pieces of misinformation from a very reliable source. So the first one that I wanted to talk to you about was what we kind of already touched on, was the protein consumption of, recommended daily intake is at least 0.8 grams per kilogram, which you and I probably eat. Well, at least I eat like 3 times that.
Yes.
So anybody who complains about eating too much protein, like come talk to me.
I eat a crap ton of protein. Mine's super high too. I love protein.
Yeah.
Mine's at 175. So I'm high. Like, I'm up there and I'm short. I'm small.
That's more than I eat.
I eat twice that. I eat twice that. But yeah, that would be like people would probably be surprised to hear that.
Yes.
Cause you are a small human and eat lots of protein. Where'd the myth come from that it was bad for you? Like kidney levels, liver enzymes, like you had mentioned before. And can we tell people that it's okay?
We can absolutely tell people that it's okay. But I think honestly, it came from the fact that whenever you actually do have a kidney that's functioning or kidney function or kidney that is suffering or kidney function that's suffering, it's going to make it really difficult for you to, metabolize and excrete that waste that protein produces. And that's, I think, what a lot of people believed it to come from, because like whenever you would be like, especially in a clinical setting, like if you have chronic kidney disease or you're on dialysis or whatever it may be, like you are on a super low protein diet because of that. And I think that that's where the misinformation comes from, is the fact that, oh, this is damaging your kidneys. It's not that it's damaging your kidneys. It's that people who actually have a crappy kidney function actually do need, a bit less protein. You know what I mean? Like there's no harm in consuming a high protein diet if you have a normal kidney function and if your kidneys are just fine, right? So that's something that I definitely think it comes from like that renal diet. Like that's literally what it's called in clinical setting, is like the renal diet. And it's like a higher protein or a lower protein diet, you know, to make sure that the kidney doesn't have to like clear out all that waste, because it really can't. And then it gets backed up.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of the misinformation probably do come from the medical setting. While you were talking about that, the other one that I was thinking about was keto. And
or any get me sort started of, on keto.
Yeah, I know. Let's fucking go off on keto right now. But what I was thinking about when you were saying that, you know, in a clinical setting, if you're experiencing renal failure, then yes, you go on a low protein diet. At the same time, like there are some conditions in which I would see a benefit to utilizing a ketogenic diet, such as in cancer patients or anywhere we need to control inflammation and keep inflammation down. Mm-hmm. That I would make sense of, but somehow that's been spun to say that carbs are bad or that carbs make you fat.
Yep. It's been, and this is the problem, is that everything gets spun by diet culture. And then, okay, so first things first is that most people aren't even doing a true ketogenic diet. They're doing like a modified low carb, like kind of like a modified Atkins diet, if you will. Yes. And it's just ridiculous. Like the keto diet was literally created to help children with epilepsy, right? And somehow it's gotten spun over all of these years into, you know, carbs are bad for you, carbs are the enemy. I completely agree there as well. You have to put context behind everything, like in terms of reducing inflammation, and even in some cases where like you're seeing extreme like blood sugar dysregulation, you're really having difficulty with getting those levels down. This might be something that you do maybe not for life though, you know what I mean? Like for a short period of time to resensitize, do all of those types of things. But like, again, carbs are not the devil. They are not the enemy. And I think what the problem is here is that the keto diet was looked at as something like back in the 90s, it was like everything was low fat. And now it's like everything's low carb. Mm-hmm. And people just love something that's quick and easy to say like, oh, let me just eliminate this and I'll be good to go. You know, they will grab onto anything like that. Anything that you tell them like, oh, stop eating this, like they'll take it and run with it, you know? So I do agree. Like there are definitely times and places, I would say, for many different diets, but in very few % of the population.
Yeah. And a lot of them are for a clinical purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
For fat loss, not for physique enhancement. Like any of these fad diets, they don't stick around long. That's why they're called fad diets. They're not going to help you get closer to your goal. And honestly, carbs probably will. Right? This one I was curious to ask you about, because I know my stance on it. What's your take on the term metabolic damage?
No.
Okay. We're on the same page.
Def not.
Yeah, I honestly, I hate it.
I hate it. Okay. And like, here's the thing is I know it's used by a lot of coaches out there for like marketing and honestly, almost like I don't want to say a scare tactic, but I've definitely seen it being used as like, your metabolism's damaged. Let me fix it.
Yeah, we have to fix it now.
Yes. The thing is like your metabolism is not damaged. Your metabolism is going to adapt no matter what you do. Like as humans, we adapt to everything. There's like, you haven't done something to your metabolism so bad that you can't come back from it. You know what I mean? It's just about, you know, just like with dieting, like whenever we're that's normally whenever it's used is like you've damaged your metabolism so much from dieting. You haven't damaged your metabolism. Your metabolism has just adapted, and all of those negative physiological adaptations that come along with dieting have occurred. Mm-hmm. So what do we have to do? We got to reverse them. We got to reverse diet. We got to focus on, you know, hormones and all of those different things. But I don't like that term because I just feel like it's really misleading. And I feel like it scares people when in reality, it can be fixed if you're a good coach who knows how to fix it.
Yeah. I hate the term. I use the term metabolic adaptation because that's what it's your metabolism is not damaged. It's not broken. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's working exactly the way it's supposed to.
That is yes, that's such a good point to make, because like it's literally, your metabolism doesn't give a shit about your physique goals. Nope. It doesn't know that you're trying to diet. So it's literally working exactly how it's supposed to. It's keeping you alive. You know what I mean? Like it realizes that you're not intaking as much and you're expending more. And it's like, oh shit. All right, I got to preserve this energy somehow, right? Okay, like let's quote unquote slow down or down regulate. But like in terms of just like saying it's damaged and broken, like that is a myth, because it's not true at all.
That's unreasonable.
What is your metabolism?
What is your metabolism?
You can't point to it on your body.
Oh, like that.
No, like what is it?
I feel like if you had
describe your
like
metabolism.
Point to your gut.
Point to your gut,
but it's a system, right? It's not an organ.
Like my thyroid, I would point to two things. I feel like,
but it's like a system. It's not an organ.
It's your body's system of checks and balances,
right?
Yes. And what I would say, like what I think of when I think of metabolism is like, first thing I think of is what makes up like your metabolic rate and your energy expenditure, I guess. Like that's the first thing that I think of. Yeah. So like, I mean, realistically, overall, like your metabolism is a part of your overall daily energy expenditure, right? But like in terms of your metabolism, I think of the thyroid, because like that's your master metabolic regulator. And then I think of hormones such as like leptin and ghrelin, but primarily leptin, because that also plays a huge role in regulating your metabolism and weight maintenance as well. But that's a really good, I honestly don't have like a really solid answer for what exactly your metabolism is.
It seems to me like it's a system. So it seems like
system.
It seems like in this topic, there's a lot of different people who are taking one thing and associating it with another because it seems similar, and it's just not true. So like a metabolism, I could drink my liver past the point of no return because it's an organ. Yeah. But your metabolism isn't an organ. Yeah, it's just a system that's responding to what your body's doing.
Exactly.
Or what you're doing to your body.
Exactly.
So therefore you can change it, because it's not,
you know what I mean? Yep.
You can't like destroy it.
Yeah.
It's just
the aim of your metabolism is to keep your body in a homeostatic environment.
Yeah.
So if you start to consume more calories than you expend, your metabolism will quite literally, I don't want to use the term speed up, it'll optimize to become less efficient. So I like to think of the metabolism as like different types of vehicles. So people with quote unquote slow metabolisms is what people is what overweight people say they have. They say they have a slow metabolism. I like to think of that as a Toyota Prius. Like super efficient with the calories that you put in. A little bit of food will last a really long time. But if you want to lose weight, you want to be like a Ford F-350. You want to be guzzling food. You want to be consuming 300 gallons per mile as if you want to be in a fat burning state. So you can adapt, you can manipulate the metabolism by slowly giving it more or less food, and also managing your energy expenditure, eating different amounts of different foods. Like protein has a higher metabolic rate. There's a bunch of things, like Kara said, like there's so many different pieces that go into how the metabolism creates its homeostatic environment that like we have to have control over that. The problem happens when the metabolism controls you. When you don't understand what variables are causing your metabolism to make the adaptations that it's making, you need to control the environment.
Yep. I think that's so true. That's such a good point. And that's what, again, most people don't understand, because all they've ever been taught is like, oh, my metabolism's slow. Your metabolism, like, I always put air quotes around slow, because like that's the terminology that like, again, like that's the terminology that people understand. So I try to talk in their language, but like your metabolism isn't slow. It's just, you have to understand like what inputs are, going in, and like what outputs are going out, and also what is affecting this. Like, is a hormonal imbalance affecting this? Is undereating affecting this? Is overexercising affecting this? Is stress? All of these different things that come into play here. So I 100% don't agree with the term damaged or broken, because it's something that you can always bounce back from and change. And like, you can create that metabolic flexibility for yourself, you know?
Any good coach will help you do that. And that's the goal. Your metabolism is one of the most valuable things that you can have as a human being, an optimized metabolism. And as far as like the slow thing, yeah, if you're blowing way more money than you're bringing in, you don't say that like your bank account is slow. No, your bank account's not slow. There's like a lot of shit that is going into you making money and then you spending money that has to do with that. And you can change that. Just stop spending so much money.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And again, it's just like people aren't educated on these things, right? Like until they meet a coach who understands these things and can walk them through this process, like all they've read on Google is like, you might have a slow metabolism. So
yeah, no, if something can downregulate, it can upregulate. If it can upregulate, it can downregulate as long as we control the variables.
Yes.
That
and
is
I
something.
Think that's,
no, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I think that's something too, that like, that's what people have to understand. Like when it comes to reverse dieting as well, like people are totally okay with like dieting and going into like a calorie deficit, but they cannot understand and grasp the concept of reverse dieting and why it helps them. And I'm like, we're literally just doing the opposite. We are literally doing the opposite of dieting. Like just like your metabolism downregulates with dieting, it's going to upregulate whenever we're reverse dieting.
But without the weight gain.
Exactly.
Yes, because this was one of my this is the next myth, the last myth that I wanted to talk to you about before we get into some gut health stuff. The myth is that eating more food will make you fat.
Yep.
But that's not always true.
Not true. Not true.
And this is what we're talking about. So reverse diet. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, like whenever it comes to reverse dieting, so I guess like the reasoning, I'm sure that you've dove deep into this on here before, Josh, too, but like the reasoning behind this is again, like if you are coming to us in like a hypocaloric state, you're somebody who's been chronically undereating, chronically dieting, which most of America is without even realizing it, like whether or not you realize it. You know, what has happened is, you know, those negative adaptations have occurred and you're probably at a state of like 1100 calories and you're like, I can't lose any more weight. Like we have nowhere else to go. We literally have nowhere else to pull from. So what do we need to do? We need to reverse back up. And why does this help us? Well, it starts to help us upregulate all of these important functions and hormones that are happening in our body. So it does start to help us upregulate metabolism. It helps us upregulate important hormones like our thyroid, like we were talking about, that's your master metabolic regulator. Like whenever you are experiencing a downregulation of thyroid hormones, you're experiencing hypothyroid symptoms, you're going to be experiencing weight loss resistance as well, you know? So upregulating that thyroid, really important. Upregulating hormones like leptin, which also play a really big role in weight maintenance and really just regulating that metabolism as well. And then at the same time, you know, we are mitigating that extra, you know, body fat gain that people are so afraid of gaining because one, we're doing this in a strategic way. We're not just taking you from 1200 calories to 2000 calories in a freaking day and like bumping your calories up like crazy. We're doing this in a strategically planned way that is going to allow us to, you know, increase over a certain period of time. And, you know, how slow and fast you go really depends on like the symptoms that you're experiencing whenever you come to us. Like if somebody's like seriously undereating, has lost their period, all those types of things, like we're going to go pretty quickly to restore that metabolism and hormones, right? But what you have to understand is that once you start eating more, your performance in the gym is going to improve. This means you're going to be putting on more lean mass. Like I cannot tell you the amount of clients, like I have clients who have lost, you know, 30 plus pounds going from 1100 calories to 2000 calories. And it's like, then your body composition changes as well at the same time. And I think that that's something that typically when we start to reverse diet, like, and if you're, you know, working with me or Josh or whatever it may be, and you're starting to also weight train at the same time, what you're going to see is you're going to see like some body recomp occur. You're probably going to see like some fat loss and muscle growth at the same time, but that scale might still stay the same, or it might even go up a bit, but that doesn't mean you're gaining body fat. Like I have had clients who their scale goes up 5-6 pounds and they look insanely leaner. You know what I mean? So I think it's just taking into consideration all those factors.
Yeah, I agree. I think an easy way to understand how a reverse diet works, and I like putting things in like almost like I don't say dumb it down, but like I imagine the metabolism is like me at work. Like my metabolism is me at a desk job, and calories are like work that my boss is giving me. Now, if I'm like used to not doing a lot of work, like I'm used to not consuming a lot of calories, and my boss just throws a ton of calories at me, a ton of work at me, I get overwhelmed and I hate my life, and I just start throwing shit away because I'm like, dude, I can't do all of this. I'm not used to it. So I have no system in place for when I can get work done, and I get overwhelmed, and then shit doesn't get done. So in the body, I imagine that is like me at work. If I just throw a bunch of calories into my system and I overwhelm my metabolism, then it's just going to throw shit away and like probably store a bunch of it as body fat. But if if my boss gives me work like a little bit more every day.
Incrementally.
Then I'm like, okay, I feel good at this level of work. I'm ready for more. And then I create this system of like ways I can organize my work so that I get shit done and I become super productive, much like you do with the metabolism as you slowly give it more calories and it doesn't get overwhelmed, and it can actually partition those nutrients towards things like building muscle and optimizing your hormone and helping you reduce stress and all those other things. To me, in my brain, that's how I think of it. Like literally.
I love that.
I've always, even when I was a kid, my parents used to make fun of me because I imagined when I ate food, it would like sit on benches in my stomach. And I used to say like when I was full, I'm like, benches are full. That's it.
That is so funny. Wait, dude, I can picture these little guys. Like mine was like these little dudes that were shaped like cakes. I don't know why, like mixing the food in my stomach and like getting it to get down. Like I'm envisioning them right now. That's
Did you
delicious.
watch that Magic School Bus show or something?
Yes.
That's totally the way that they portrayed
You're
things.
right. That's probably what it was from.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's probably why.
The frizzy red hair teacher.
Yeah, Miss Frizzle or whatever.
Yeah, Miss Frizzle, Magic School Bus.
Oh my God. I have to go back and find this episode now. This is where it came from.
Probably.
That's hysterical. All right. If y'all need a breakdown on how nutrition works, go watch the Magic School Bus.
Go watch it. I love it.
I love that. Oh my God. All right. I wanted to get into with you. We talked about some gut health things. You and I talk about gut health like all the time.
Yes.
We're always back and forth talking about gut health.
I love it because we're always learning.
We're always learning. Yeah. We have like a fucking dope group chat going on right now. We're always just asking each other questions. So I think that, real quick. Yeah. If your coach doesn't have like a team of coach friends to go to, like you're just working with that one coach, come on.
You need multiple brains in this system. Like we are not too good to say that like we are forever asking each other questions and saying, I don't know to things. Like that's what makes a good coach.
It takes a village.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So talking about gut health, something that I find a lot, and I wonder if you do too, is when I talk to clients about digestion, I usually get things like fine, or they're like, it's fine, or it's normal. And then you dig a little deeper and you find that it's like not normal. What is normal and what's not as far as digestion goes?
So I would honestly say like, whenever I think of like normal and not normal, I would say like normal with digestion is obviously you're going to have some sort of like a little bit of, quote unquote bloat or like distension after a meal. That's normal. Okay. Like I think a lot of times I'll get clients being like, oh, I'm so bloated after like I eat carbs or whatever it may be. And I'm like, are you truly like bloated, uncomfortably bloated, or are you just like a little bit bloated because you have a little bit more food sitting in your stomach and you're digesting that food? You know what I mean? So I think that should be normalized, is like understanding that some bloating after meals is normal. What's not normal is having like distended bloating, having like consistent if that bloating is lasting like 1-2 hours after meals and you're having like stomach pains, you're having gassiness, you're having cramps, whatever that may be, that's when we need to look into things further, right? And I think it's same thing goes with like, pooping every day. Like most people think that not like only going to the bathroom like 4 out of 7 days a week is completely normal. And I'm like, that's not normal. We should be going at least 1 to 3 times a day. And they should be like pretty like hard formed stools, like TMI here, but it's true. And I think that a lot of people just are like, oh, like I go like every other day, so I'm fine, like it's good. And I'm like, that's not normal, So I would definitely say that. And again, like I'm not a gut health expert, but I'll say that a lot of people think that, their normal bloating after meals is something that it's not. But then there will be people who are like, oh, I'm fine, but are like gassy, distended for like an hour or 2 after their meals. And I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah. Because that's become normal for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember living with dudes in college, just like farting all the time in the house. And you're just like, all right, man, like, why don't you stop? And they're like, well, it just like hurts. I'm like, yeah, well then like go see a doctor. Like not the case for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop eating shit that makes you do that.
If you're in pain,
Exactly.
there's clearly something wrong.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think for a long time, I mean, I'll be honest, I did this for a long time. I've had gut issues my entire life. And I mean, you get in the habit of, and I have a lot of clients and you probably do too, who are just, they come to you and they're like, yeah, it's just the way it is. Like,
Yep.
I'm like, no,
This
no,
is
no,
all
no,
I've known.
Yeah.
No.
No, that's
Oh
not
my
okay.
God. I just had somebody from the boardroom actually sent me a client, and she was like, what would you do about this? And this client was saying, she was like, I've had issues for 11 years. It just is the way it is, blah, blah, blah. But she was like, but I can't afford testing or anything. So I just deal with it. I'm like, listen, you're going to really let you've had issues for 11 years and you're not willing to dive deeper into it to figure out what the heck it is. You can't afford a few $100 up front to actually fix this for the rest of your life.
11 years. Save
11
like
years.
$1 a week.
$1 a week, right?
And also,
Over 11 years.
This
and you can pay
person's
for whatever
paying
you
for a
need.
coach. So
That's what I said too.
how's she affording the coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, this is getting into the next topic that I wanted to get into, which is like, how do you fix some of this shit? So you mentioned food sensitivity testing. We both use Vibrant Wellness, right?
So Vibrant Wellness, yeah. So I actually haven't ordered for me personally any through Vibrant Wellness. I actually had one of my friends order a GI map for one of my clients, but I need to set up an account with Vibrant Wellness.
Yeah, me too.
For sure.
What is Vibrant Wellness?
It's just a company that does gut health labs, gut testing labs.
Okay.
So they do food sensitivity testing.
Yes.
So
How much do those cost?
depends, right?
So super exciting. I'm actually getting a GI map done on myself. I should get my results back soon, which I'm actually kind of nervous about. But it was $280. So pretty expensive, but for a person who's like already paying for a coach, and like for us, we're like, it's not bad. We'll do whatever to figure out our health. But like,
Dude, I'll spend so much money just to figure out what's going on with me. But I think
but I will say, in terms of like, there are just so many tests out there, and it's about like knowing what to get, I think. And I think that a lot of people will automatically go to food sensitivity or food intolerance testing. And this oftentimes they're highly inaccurate. Like,
it's a starting place, but
it is a starting place, but like, especially with food intolerance tests, like the problems with them is that like the antibodies that they test like obviously like for a food allergy, you're testing for IgE antibodies. So like you're actually testing that you are having like an immune response, like, think hives, all that stuff. But like for the food sensitivity tests, you're testing IgG antibodies. And a lot of those antibodies are already present with foods that you eat often. So like a lot of people will find that like the foods they eat often, it'll pop up as a sensitivity and they'll be like, what? So it's difficult because it might not always be the most accurate,
Yeah. But it's either that, or obviously you can get a GI map.
Yes.
The other option, and this is for like this person that you were just talking about who says they can't afford food sensitivity testing or a GI map, is just a full-blown elimination diet. And that sucks.
Yep. It sucks. It sucks a lot.
I would pay $1,000 to not have to do that.
Exactly. And it stinks also because, again, like you need to make sure, like if you are looking into doing an elimination diet, you need to make sure that you're doing it with somebody who actually knows how to do one. Cause like an elimination diet is not just like, okay, let's completely eliminate these things forever. You know what I mean? For some people, they do need to eliminate like gluten, all those things. Like Josh, I know you're gluten free. Yeah, you know what I mean? But like, I had one of my clients who has Hashimoto's. We did like a full elimination diet. Like it was gluten, artificials, like soy, dairy, alcohol, everything. And I'm really actually surprised at how well she did with it. Like she really freaking rocked it. And oh my God, it improved her symptoms so much, especially her GI symptoms. But that's definitely difficult.
Yeah, that's really hard. So the route that we recommend people take, if you can afford it, is to get some testing done to get an idea of what foods you need to eliminate first.
Yeah.
Then eliminate them so that you don't hate your life quite as much.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a list of if people were to get like 3 labs done, what are like the name of the labs, and then
of the food,
where would you find them
for gut health?
So like Vibrant Wellness is probably the name of like the company that does like a gut health lab.
Yeah.
So that's
definitely
one.
GI map, and you can order that through Diagnostic Solutions. If you're somebody who suspects you have a gluten intolerance as well, a wheat Zoomer test would be really, really helpful. And then I would say in terms of like, again, like the food sensitivity, I'm not super familiar with food sensitivity testing companies.
So Vibrant Wellness does them.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've done them through Vibrant Wellness for myself in the past. That's probably the only one I would really recommend. I like Vibrant Wellness. They have good testing. What are your thoughts on Dutch tests?
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I actually was just looking into becoming a provider today, but I'm like, I need to go so much more in depth on learning how to actually read them and how everything metabolizes. It's a lot of information.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot.
I'm going to learn it through the mentorship that I'm going through here soon, but it's like, it's some serious shit. You know what I mean? And I want to be able to actually understand, okay, what's going on and how to proceed with the client after. So
once we figure out what the issue is, obviously, we can eliminate that. What are some other ways that we can easily fix some gut health symptoms and some abnormalities that people are going through, whether that's like stress mitigation, supplementation? What do you usually do for your clients?
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, like even before testing, like the very first thing that I have my clients do is I have them do a food and symptom log, especially if there's somebody who can't afford testing at the time, maybe, or whatever it may be. Like I always like to do that first to get a really good idea of like actually what might be triggering them. So like really asking like, okay, what did you eat? Like how long after it did you start experiencing symptoms? What were the symptoms like? Did you have a bowel movement? How much fiber did you eat that day? Whatever it may be. But other things that I look into are obviously like their fiber intake, because a lot of times, like I literally just helped fix one of my clients, like gassiness and bloating issues. And one of her big things was she was eating like 45 to 50 grams of fiber a day. And I was like, we got to get that down. And that was one of the big things causing it, because, for some people, honestly, they can tolerate a high fiber intake, but too much or too little is a slippery slope, so you have to kind of find like what your sweet spot is. Like my recommendation is 14 grams for every 1,000 calories consumed. That's typically what most people will, feel pretty good with. But then in terms of, just looking at overall lifestyle factors, and I know that this is something that we stress so much, but like the fiber intake is one, understanding that you need to be getting movement in like around meals. That helps so much with like motility, digestion, everything like that. And then, in terms of stress, that's something huge. And that is literally like, I have a client who has IBS. Well, quote unquote IBS. It's an umbrella diagnosis, but like he has these flare-ups and he's a very high stress and anxiety client, and he has these flare-ups every single time he has anxiety. And people don't understand that like your brain and your gut are directly connected through the vagus nerve. Like that feeling that, have you ever heard of the word gut or the term gut feeling? Like it's true. You know what I mean? And I think that that's just something that is so huge, is understanding you have to mitigate that stress, because there have been so many studies out there showing the link between like anxiety and gut health. So stress management is absolutely a huge one for sure. And then just, really making sure that you're consuming. I focus a lot on like, okay, what is our food quality like? Like, are we consuming a lot of inflammatory foods, and really making sure that we're focusing on more, anti-inflammatory foods, a lot of omega-3s, a lot of, fruits and veggies, fiber, healthy fats, all those types of things. But I really think it comes down to getting down to the behaviors of the person first. And caffeine intake, huge one. Justin just made me reduce my caffeine intake as well, because I was having some gut issues, and that it is like, it's so huge in causing issues in people, and people don't realize it.
It puts you into a sympathetic state. It's synthetically entering you into a sympathetic state, and that's just stress. And honestly, most people are stressed out enough. Like, we don't need more.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And that's a really difficult one for people. I mean, it was hard for me to give up, and I was only consuming 200 milligrams a day, but that 200 milligrams every single day adds up. It can add up, That
adds up. And I think for people if you're listening to this and you're wondering, okay, well, I need to manage stress. You're like, how do I manage stress? Like for Travis, he goes and fights people in the street and gets punched in the face. No, he goes and trains at high altitude martial arts, and he fights people, and like that is his stress relief, but it's also a stressor. So we have to manage things as best we can as far as balancing your stress. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, how do I manage my stress? I know you and I both have a lot of information and a lot of resources on how to do that. So troll our pages, go to our Facebooks, like all the information's in there. And on that note, I think we're coming up. Yeah, we're on an hour, right? So I don't want to keep everybody too long, but I do want you to give yourself the opportunity to share where people can find you and what you have going on, and give yourself the plug. So what's up?
Yes, the plug. So you can find me at Goss_RD on Instagram. And then I do have a Facebook group as well. It is Functional Fat Loss Secrets for Women. And I have my own podcast, the Not Your Quick Fix podcast, with Kylie Kaiser, who has also been on here. And I'm also starting a 21-day challenge tomorrow, dropping that. And I know that Josh is doing one as well. So you guys need to join that if you have not. But yeah, doing a lot of fun things. But the best places to find me are on Instagram and in my Facebook group. I put out a lot of education, and I'm always here to help you guys. So
I love it. For real, y'all, if you're not following Kara, look, here's the thing. I don't bring not intelligent people on my podcast. And I don't introduce you guys to people who I don't fully trust. So if you're not following Kara, if you're not on her Instagram, if you're not on her Facebook, if you're not listening to the podcast, you have to go do that. And you have to do it right now, or else we're going to have a problem, and you're going to meet me in the parking lot after school. And that's that. Okay.
We're going to have some words.
Put some words. But yo, Kara, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to you, even with the technical difficulties were hysterical. But I had such a good time.
Like that's gonna be an inside joke forever.
I love it. Every time I see you, I'm just gonna repeat myself over and over and over again. Well, awesome. No,
PTSD.
Yeah, for real. It's been really good having you on, though. And of course, we're probably going to have you on again. Can never get enough of you. So y'all, thank you for tuning in to episode 20 or whatever, I guess. 20? Probably episode 20 of the Struggle of the Strength podcast. Thank you, Kara, for coming on. We will talk to you soon, and everybody, we will see you next week.